Welcome to the dark side of the corporate government, or the dark side of the new public management, or the new public administration. Taken from my recent book, Public Sector Perspectives on Biowarfare and Creative Capitalism. Starting in 2015, governments and corporations give money to the media and contractors to write and create fake news. Why government funds all the fake news? To glorify lies and create confusion? They want you to have a confused mind. Don't you know that a confused mind is the devil's playground? They want you to be confused with the things that are happening around the world. After all, you are living in a global environment, not in your own country. They want you to live in confusion and let the devil to play around in your mind. What would happen to you then? What is the purpose of all this? It's a lies, deceitfulness, and manipulations. During the pandemic, I found so many manipulations, deceitfulness, and lies. Why? Although many likes the corporate government, I mean this arrangement of government as a corporation because they have gained economic benefits from this arrangement. Here are the truths about this corporation or corporate government. It is dark, it is full of lies, deceitfulness, manipulations, and criminal activities. A good government has now become a bad government. A bright government has now become a dark corporation that serves and glorifies lies at your expense. How? As a former public servant and a person with knowledge, expertise, or knowledge specialization, we were trained to solve public problems. Our job is to solve public problems, to serve fellow citizens by enhancing their social and economic well-being through a long-term economic planning in every aspect that grants citizens equal access to government provisions and services without consideration of any attributes. You cannot say that you serve the people but discriminate some from having access to health care, or some may have access to security and protections while others can. Like most of victims of white collar crimes are people who are weak and cannot fight back, so they cannot have access to protection from and security from law enforcement. Or some people cannot access public beach, but others can. Or some people can access dental care, but others can. Ellen White said in her education that the true purpose of education is to serve fellow citizens. It gives you a certain feeling of intellectual satisfaction that money cannot buy. Many people want to enter the government not to serve fellow citizens, but to gain power, to control, and to have access to public resources without scrutiny, gain social prestige, and the most is for personal enrichment. They want to become wealthy at your expense. They believe in the market sentiment, or the market sponsors them to carry its sentiment and accuse the government is inefficient, even though there has never been any proof until today that government is inefficient. Once elected, they lead to transform the government into a system they only know, which is their own business. From the management system to the administrative system, the organization and its structure, and even to the government human resources system, all become like their own system. They want the government to operate as they operate their own business. But many political leaders are not business people. So businesses give money to them or bribe them to carry their sentiment. Bribery is a crime. Therefore, they normalize it and makes it sound like not a crime by calling gifting. Without special training and without job descriptions, they are, as Adam Smith stated in his The Wealth of the Nation, merchants who think nothing but their own particular trade. You know that when it comes to accusation, have you heard the phrase, those who cast the first stone are the ones who commit the crime? They want you to become inefficient by accusing you inefficient. They look at government from their external observation. They actually know very little about government, but speak loudly because they want to dismantle the government to open up the door for them to access public resources without scrutiny. Siding with the market and they hope that they can access public resources without scrutiny, they change the government to become like a corporation, an entity they are familiar with. And this was implemented radically in the early 1980s. In developing countries such as Indonesia or the Philippines, it was implemented incrementally but earlier, before 1980s. The market wants you to know that it has the most efficient way to be used, or that government should be managed in a business-like manner to be efficient. It believes that government should be managed as a private corporation, but it is a delusion. The government and private corporations are different in every aspect. They cannot be managed in similar way. Private corporation is about accumulating individual wealth, but the government is about taking care of the citizens, their social and economic well-being. It is about the nation and its importance. It is about what I can do to better the society. When you apply for a job in the government, this is one of the main requirements. What can I do to better the society? As a corporation, it is all about accumulating personal wealth at the expense of the society. Although created as a corporation to enrich the cronies at your expense, this new public management, this new public administration or corporate government is politically managed. Very few elected officials know very little about government. They transform the government into a small corporation, as in the corporation or company they used to work. If the elected official used to work at Walmart, he would transform the department or agency he leads, or where he was the leader, to be like Walmart. Incrementally, government that was service-oriented and mission or objective-driven becomes money or profit-oriented. Without a mission, or the mission is, as Biden put it, profits. Everything is driven by money. Decisions are driven by money. From a long-term perspective, government becomes a short-term gain. From an institution operating within a paradox of laws, where the laws are a few but thoroughly taught, it becomes an institution operating without laws but laden with laws, or everything is a law, although these laws are made to favor certain individuals or a certain entity, and do not even have the merit to be called laws. It becomes law-driven. So to the case of public policy. Most public policies issued are meant to enrich certain individuals or corporations, but all are at your expense. From public policy, it becomes individual policies. As I just said, many of public policies are private policies, and they do not carry the criteria or do not have the merit to be called public policies. From public interest, it becomes private interest. Pay attention to their political platforms. Many are individually driven. None of these modern elected officials ever carry with them public aspirations, but their own aspiration, or the aspiration of those who support them financially. It requires higher learning and special training to know and understand public interest or public aspiration. From an institution that is managed according to scientific administration and scientifically analyzed, where knowledge and knowledge specializations are required for the task to serve fellow citizens and to solve public problems, it becomes an institution where knowledge is abundant and practicality and multitasking becomes the Bible. The government is no longer a problem solver, but merely an observant or a facilitator. You can see this during the COVID-19 pandemic or during the COVID mandate season. Yes, you can see it very clearly. Political leaders represent spokespersons of the globalists or private corporations. Public servants are like spectators in a football field watching private corporations people run around the field without making any effort to touch down. The purpose is that not to touch down, but keep playing while politicians are acting as the referee and be ready when to call to stop the game. They spoke according to the protocol, not government protocol, but the protocol of the globalists or the corporation. From scientific, it becomes practical, but they call it science. Do you believe it? They call the COVID-19 vaccine science. Can you call chemical substances and other things that are put together in what is called a vaccine and injected into your arms without ever being tested as science? You are actually the real guinea pigs. The truth why they call the COVID-19 vaccine is science can be found in this book, Public Sector Perspectives on Biowarfare and Creative Capitalism. From an institution of the people, by the people, and for the people, it becomes an institution for the cronies. From an institution whose leaders love knowledge and use knowledge specialization to serve the fellow citizens and solve public problems, it becomes a corporation whose leaders mock knowledge and serve only the cronies. The leaders reject knowledge. They abandon knowledge and glorify common sense, practicality, and multitasking. They want you to do the same because they are lacking in these matters. You know, Prophet Hosea warned that if you reject knowledge, the people will be destroyed. You have rejected knowledge, and the people will be destroyed. Then this corporation adopted race, but claimed it diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is just a politics to allow those who supported them during the political campaign and their flock to occupy leadership positions or important positions in the corporation. Those with knowledge specializations were rejected and became like an endangered species in government. They were even rejected and sent to the labor force, whereas those without knowledge occupy positions meant for those with knowledge expertise. If the positions do not exist, the political leaders create phantom positions, meaning positions that exist only on paper but not according to the management and structure of the organization. Their position is nothing but for the prestige and money. This is just another type of welfare that comes with the prestige. They hardly go to public office because they have no place in there and serve no one but themselves. Leaders in this corporation never solve public problems but simply performing. They speak louder without the accents, or the accents they take are actually dictated by the cronies. They decide now, do things in a hurry without thinking. The damage they make from wrong decisions they issued will take you years to fix it, because most people just use their common sense and practicality rather than using knowledge and knowledge specialization. They are like jack of all trades, but master in none. Politicians often claim that they're expert on every issue, and they gain their expertise from criticizing their fellow politicians. Such claim is a joke. You need knowledge specialization to be regarded as an expert. They are like empty barrel that sounds louder than a full barrel. They are not dependable, not accountable, and prefer accusing, counter-accusing, scapegoating others, and pretty much arguing. Argument is a corrupt conversation. That explains why they all corrupt after arguing all day. They may seem to hate each other during their argument season, but after arguing all day, they sleep on the same bed. This performance shows how cruel, unjust, and morally damaging they are. This performance shows they are dysfunctional. The cronies like dealing with leaders who are dysfunctional. It is easy to control the leaders who are dysfunctional. In this corporate government, politicians do not make public policy or regulations. They contract the job to outsiders, especially those who have political ties to them, such as the think tank groups or individual contractors. The top political leaders act more like a salesperson and travel around the world selling your country's resources, including public policies, foreign policies, to foreign leaders. They collect money once the deal gone through. When they travel to foreign countries, they carry with them political provocators who would be ready to trigger the local NGOs should the trade deal fail. If the foreign leaders refuse to buy their products, which is your national resources or even your departments and policies and so forth, they pay local NGOs, and political provocators were ready to support the local NGOs to mobilize the mass and demonstrate against their governments. Foreign governments tend to agree to purchase these goods or policies proposed just to appease your political leaders and calm down the mass. In other words, they come with a bully attitude and force you to buy products or policies that they're selling. If you refuse to buy, they will damage you politically, economically, socially, and even use the war to make you surrender. The war is a business. They use your tax dollars to create and prolong war. It is a business created for different purposes, such as expanding territory and colony, for political power and control, taking over the natural resources, and a way of legalizing or normalizing money laundering and tax evasion. The money sent to the country at war, Ukraine for example, comes in a Chinese big box. Inside this big box are different schemes where the money should go to different businesses of those involved from your country that operates in Ukraine. It is to normalize the war as long as they can and to make profits at your expense. Working in the government is not about making profits but servicing fellow citizens. The perceptions about making money is just a market skew to rob you because you have rejected knowledge. In this corporate government, the leaders form their team at the top and outside the public office. They spend 60% of their time outside with their cronies and attend other businesses, then split 40% of their time between their business and constituencies or primary. So they do very little. Their political staff do all the things for them, including forging their signature to approve the cronies' proposals or the outgoing letters and serve you based on personal favor. Forgery is a crime, but they do it anyway as long as they can make money fast. They send you to the customer service or client care agents instead, which you do not know who they are and from what country they're from. They never send you to see or meet with public servants. They hide public servants from you. Yes, public servants are being kept away from you. Having the customer service agents to serve you is the politics of removing your sovereignty as a citizen of a country. Any cotton-picking Harry will serve you, not your fellow citizens. Therefore, if you notice the communication of people who serve you either in writing or over the telephone or via the internet, no name or a fake name, no address, sometimes a PO box with a centralized telephone number or a centralized facsimile number. The police will find it difficult to find those committing white-collar crimes, especially when it comes to customer service or client care. They are powerless. Public servants have been treated as preferred shareholders. They have no voice in any changes in policies or laws or in anything that involves you. They have no say if the corporate government staff is robbing you financially in a political manner. These corporate leaders, politicians in particular, also make sure that public servants will not serve you, but the customer service agents or the client care agents will. These agents are from anywhere. You do not know where they are from. They do not have names. If you ask for their names, they will simply give you their agent number or a fake name. This indicates a savage practice. Problems will never be solved in the scheme of political management and customer service or client care scheme. This is a scheme to avoid responsibility and accountability, but it endorses crime and criminal activities. Have you noticed in this corporate system, it is easy for the leaders and their staff to hide from being accountable to cases such as identity theft, financial fraud, corruption, collusion, bribery, grafts, thefts, then that has been normalized and turned into gifting. Bribery is a gifting, Ponzi scheme, and any other crimes, even murder of innocent citizens, including children. Political leaders are involved in white-collar crimes and red-collar crimes. For example, using your identities to withdraw the tax dollars and launder it to safe haven, slavery, child trafficking, and transportation and Kabbalistic practices. The last one involves murder. Even government becomes the middleman in transporting and trafficking children. You can read more about this in my book, Public Sector Perspectives and on Biowarfare and Creative Capitalism. Public servants take an oath to serve you, but they have been refrained and restricted from serving you. They are told to hide from you. Politicians and their staff, even political appointees, do not serve you. When you seek their help, they send you to the customer service and the client care. This is a system introduced by the banking industry in 2008. Political staff and political appointees serve the government of the day, not you, although they are all paid with your tax dollars. Being a corporation, they are all too proud to serve you. But politicians are like puppets to the cronies. While politicians demand obedience and submission from you, the cronies demand the same from politicians and those politically appointed. Then the cronies want all of you to be submissive and obedient to them by using public policies and laws fed to the politicians and use politicians to enforce such policies and laws, which you can see during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is actually a plandemic, not a pandemic, because all have been planned decades ago. For example, Canada and the United States have started the pandemic plan since the 1980s. They went through different exercises even use business strategies such as marketing and advertising. Yes, they use marketing and advertising for the pandemic, with the main objective is to make everyone, small and great, to take the COVID-19 vaccine. And at the end of the tunnel is money for them. Politicians and, of course, their staff and political appointees do receive money after you have been injected. Many of them do not even take the COVID vaccine. You are required to take 10 COVID-19 vaccines at an interval. First, it was between 28 days and 30 days. Then, as people died suddenly after the first and second doses, they prolonged the interval 3 months, then 6 months, and then a year. From a problem solver, government is no longer a problem solver because those who can solve their problems have been rejected. They are also people who are willing to serve their fellow citizens and have the knowledge and wisdom to put themselves in the shoes of the others, but have been replaced by customer service agents and client care agents who have placed themselves above the leaders, and they become ignorant and arrogant. If you complain, they argue with you, leaving you no room to refute. They also have the bully attitude. Over time, they started to create schemes to fraud you and rob you. Their logbooks about you is full of lies and fabrication. Chairman Mao said that those with knowledge expertise or knowledge specializations are in favor not only to serve their fellow citizens, but also equality. They prefer equality in terms of public provisions of goods and services and are greater problem solvers. But they are extinct in the corporate government. This corporation operates with people without names and addresses. Citizens are treated as customers. Treating citizens as customers is very wrong, unacceptable, and must be corrected. They are citizens, not customers. When it comes to national defense, for example, none of these customer service agents or client care agents is patriotic. Customers are not patriotic. They sell you for money. Remember the case of Richard Hansen, an FBI agent who turned a spy? Politicians are not patriotic either because they come from customers, but they demand that customers should be patriotic. Does it make sense? George Bush created the Patriot Act and wants you to be patriotic by banning all research and development, production, and distribution of biowarfare or bioweapons. There is even a penalty for those who do research and development or distribution of bioweapons. Most politicians soon after the election render themselves as servants to foreign representatives. This means that they are not patriotic. They are treason because of money. They ignore the Patriot Act and have allowed clients to develop and distribute bioweapons at your expense. In the corporate world, there is interference. You have mergers, acquisitions, and even rebranding to eliminate or hide scandals within the corporation. You have another company that interferes in the management of your corporations and takes over the control of your corporation. When you turn the government into a corporation, you see the same practices. In Canada, for example, you will find Chinese police stations. There is also Chinese influence in Canadian politics, from choosing the candidates, money donated to political parties and individual politicians, election and election campaign, and to policies and regulations. The same scenarios also exist in the United States. Chinese actors infiltrate the United States government in every level to benefit the Chinese regime. Foreign interference is about creating another government within your country, an alien. Just like you have many corporations in the country, you will also have different government in your country. The U.S. Constitution has a prohibition about the alien, yet within the country, the aliens are incrementally taking over the government and establish their own government in the form of corporation. You hear about the deep state? In Canada, the deep state is normalized through a policy called open government. Any person or any organization can use the name of government and rob you, fraud you, or even use your identities to withdraw money from the public treasury without your knowledge. For example, Total Credit Recovery, a collection agency, it was banned in the United States for making illegal collection of student loan. So they started in Canada. After got banned in the United States, they came to Canada and has been using the name of the Ontario Ministry of Finance to make illegal collection of student loan, and even negotiated with the CRA Revenue Agency contractors to take all the students' tax refunds and individual or family benefits. There are 650,000 students whose identities were used by bank officials and those at the provincial and federal departments that deal with student loan fraudulently and using forgery and fraudulent documents. Although hundreds of thousands of students do not have any student loan and other hundreds of thousands have had their loans forgiven by government, this collection agency has illegally negotiated to withdraw the students' tax refunds and benefits for years without the students know about it. All are done behind closed doors. Since tax year 2012, the 650,000 students whose identities are used by these corrupt officials to take student loan or internal loan fraudulently have had their tax refunds and benefits stolen by these corrupt officials by and taken by this collection agency. The government knows about the bank officials and insiders of the government who take student loans fraudulently and use the students' identities. They close their eyes. Illegally, the individuals involved in this fraud even use the tax contractors to put the fraudulent loan in their notice of assessment, which is another way of forcing the innocent students to be responsible for their crime because they are the corrupt bank officials and former or current corrupt government officials. Many of those involved from the federal governments do turn into contractors and still use the students' identities to commit financial crime, including money laundering. There is also the Canada Revenue Agency Corporations, created in 2007 by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper to take over. His intention was to take over the nation's logistics, and they use the name of Canada Revenue Agency to fraud the citizens. But citizens do not know about the existence of individuals or entities that use the name of the government to commit financial fraud. Their main targets, as always, are those who are weak and cannot fight back, pensioners and elderly people. These agents also use your identities to do money laundering by colluding with bank managers. You know, money will never leave your account or the country without the manager's authorization. When a lawyer says to you that once the money leaves the country, you cannot get it back, that is wrong. That's a lie. Yes, you can get the money back because the banks have a recovery program. Only a fool believes you cannot get the money back once the money leaves the country, or in any money laundering scheme, you can get the money back. Whose fault are these? It is your fault because you have believed in a false ideology. The government cannot operate in a business-like manner. It cannot operate as a corporation. In fact, the government and a private corporation are different in every aspect. They cannot be equalized. They cannot be generalized. They cannot be compared. Even Andrew Graham said in his public sector financial management, a small comparison can be dangerous. Abraham Lincoln declared that government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. If you have a bad government, it is because you have bad people in government. Ellen White suggested that if you have bad people or if you have bad leaders, get rid of them quickly before they create more damage to the organization. You want the government to operate like a business because you believe in their words. Those who want to access your tax dollars easy and fast, they tell you the government is inefficient, or therefore you elected them. You elected those who promoted smaller government by getting rid of you. You believe in those who claim the government is not efficient, those who claim that government must operate in a business-like manner in order to be efficient, and those who claim the government must work with cost-benefit analysis or with profit orientation. They want the government to save costs by cutting programs from you so that you will no longer receive the return of your tax dollars designed by those with knowledge specializations when they were still working in the government. Public finance is about redistributing national income. The more you promote smaller governments or cost saving, the lesser is your chance of receiving the redistribution of national income, because the money saved is given to the cronies for myriads of their ideas. If government becomes smaller, the cronies will grow and occupy every aspect of public sector. It is about a hostile takeover, not only the office but also the resources. You can easily be victimized within the color of corporate government, especially when knowledge has been abandoned and you are being served by customer service or client care agents. You have to get rid of this customer service and client care agents in the practice of this corporate government or a good government. They have to be eliminated. These are false ideologies. Government cannot operate as a corporation. Not only it will lose its legal status as defined by the Constitution, but it will also cause government to be like an ATM. As you can see now, government is nothing but a cash cow for the cronies at your expense. The cronies come to the government with different ideas and giftings, and political leaders will authorize spending for the cronies' projects. The cronies want all to themselves, so they dictate politicians to cut spending on social and economic welfare programs, including the programs for defense and security. Law enforcement officers have been trained to be like customer service. They are called community police or simply police service. They are not trained in combating white-collar crimes and let alone red-collar crimes. The cronies want your elected officials to continuously cut spending for you, but increase spending on their ideas. Politicians also continuously receiving the gifting from the cronies and from you, but all the giftings come from your tax dollars. It is a vicious cycle. Those who make the claim that government is inefficient are people who want to access public resources without scrutiny and want the political power without a fight, but to take it without a right. They never require that those competing for public sector positions, especially for leadership positions, must go through special training and take certain tests to qualify them for the positions they are competing for. They just use their ability to argue or deliver speech to manipulate you to entrust them with political power, which leads them to want to control you. They want to control you and use money to do so. Believe in their commercial propagandas, you follow their mandate to remove all testing mechanisms to ensure that only good people work in government. Ironically, many political leaders and political staff, even their political pundits, come from a dark background. Therefore, they are all in favor of appointment rather than exam and training. Their access to government is based on their financial contribution to politicians and their political parties. They depend on money from you at your expense, being political puppets to the cronies. Politicians are actually double dipping. They receive money from the public treasury, which is your tax dollars, from your own pocket and from the cronies, who use the money from the public treasury to bribe them. The cronies are the pipers who call the tune, but at your expense. The money they give to political parties and individual politicians comes from your tax dollars in different schemes, such as lucrative projects, grants, subsidies, etc. Then a portion of the money received by the cronies goes back to individual politicians and their political parties. Although the Conservative Party is the leading party, the Liberal Party and other parties also receive money from the cronies by percentage. The leading party received the highest percentage and followed by the opposition party and the other parties in a descending portion. It is just a vicious cycle. In the United States, you learn about the pioneers and the rangers. These are people who give the most money to the political parties and individual politicians and have had their candidates to enter government as political appointees without going through the system public servant must go through. Like politicians and their political staffs, they are exempted from the requirements required for public servants. Even the political appointees also are exempted from the requirements required for public servants. They carry all their bad habits with them to the government and cast their dark shadow everywhere. From a bright institution, it becomes a dark corporation. As I mentioned, the dark side of the corporate government is taken from this book, Public Sector Perspectives on Biowarfare and Creative Capitalism. This is my recent publication, which involves white-collar crimes, dysfunctional leadership, politics, public policies, dysfunctional financial and organizational management, and red-collar crimes. In my previous publication, I talked about Canada's white-collar crimes, which involve political, financial, and corporate crimes committed by government officials, businesses, professionals, and people of reputations. There is also the 21st century public leadership, the key foundation of excellent leadership. This book discusses the right requirements or qualities for public leadership, which many have overlooked. In Canada, for example, they even teach public leader candidates by looking at Bill Gates' personality and how he becomes successful, because it is practical. But during COVID mandates, they have lost their subject. Bill Gates is no longer the symbol of public leaders. He should be a wanted criminal. So since you have overlooked the right qualities for public leadership and believe in those with eloquent speech to reform government according to their myopic view about government, you are now suffering as the cronies use these no-quality leaders to destroy you using many different schemes. Their leadership is about money and popularity. It is about personal enrichment. Therefore, They quickly become ignorant, arrogant, and even sell you for their status quo in terms of individual wealth. If I can summarize the management system of this corporation, it is all about money. It is about political power and the desire of leaders who want to be the number one. The former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper said to me once, "It is about survival of the fittest." Surviving from what? You are to improve the social and economic welfare, the well-being of the people, the Canadians, and the nations. It is about doing better for the society and the country. But for the corporate government, it is about competing to be the best in the world. Who is the greatest in the world? Is not the Bible saying that the greatest will be the lowest and the lowest will be the greatest? Why not taking care of your country? Why not taking care of your citizens? Taking care of their social well-being? Why not serving the people who elected you rather than sending them to customer service or client care? Leadership does not exist in this corporate government. The elected official and political appointees occupy leadership positions but do not perform leadership tasks. They do not have job descriptions because those who design job descriptions for them were rejected and abandoned. In fact, politicians cast their attitude against intellectuals. During the COVID-19 campaign, they called the intellectuals conspiracy theorists. These elected and appointed leaders read only one or two paragraph briefing notes prepared by their political staff and sign on the dotted line. They know very little. Their knowledge is limited. They are knowledge dependent. With their deputy, every day they work and walk on a fast lane. They do very little. They serve every need of the cronies, but you. You have to bend over, down, and up from every angle, or even to demonstrate to get them to listen to you about a problem caused by them and their cronies. This corporate government also suffers from severe mental and technical incapacity because they have rejected knowledge. They have rejected the people, and they depend solely on their political staff, the customer service, and the client care. Any person can sell BS to these leaders, and they believe that person. Like Justin Trudeau's deputy leader, Chrystia Freeland. She wanted the Senate to approve her $2 billion clean project or green project. She wanted the money now because she was going to leave for Davos, the WEF meeting. She's the trustee of the WEF. But the company is a phantom company, meaning it does not exist or it exists in name only. They are actually defrauding the government and use politicians to do so. Politicians believe them because their knowledge is limited and have no mental and technical capacity personnel to help them in their daily tasks. This explains why there are so many phantom corporations or empty shell companies bid on government projects and even rob the citizens. Political leaders know about it but do not have the mental and technical capacity to solve this kind of issue. Empty shell companies have been bidding on government procurement or proposing ideas with the gifting to withdraw public resources or to make a living from your tax dollars for doing nothing. They are defrauding or robbing you using a political mandate, which is not a law, but merely a political decision, which has no legal binding. They even use public policy to rob you at your expense and ignorance. You know that ever since government reform, lobbyists have flooded government offices, the offices of the elected officials, to propose their ideas with the gifting in exchange for your tax dollars. The government spends millions or even billions on the lobbying schemes. Even elected and appointed leaders are also lobbyists. Globalists such as George Soros, Bill Gates are lobbyists. Even President Donald Trump is a lobbyist. Lobbying becomes a lucrative business since government rejected those with knowledge and knowledge specialization and abandoned knowledge. Without the support of those they call conspiracy theories, public leaders are dysfunctional, and lobbyists and their cronies like dealing with dysfunctional leaders because they can easily be controlled. Lobbying is the same as begging. It is one of what Gandhi called seven deadly sins. You make money or make a living by doing nothing or just selling ideas. The system of corporate government is a mercantile system, a system that caters to the clients more than to you, citizens who elected the leaders. And these leaders want smaller government and accept the cronies and their flocks that keeps growing as the years go by. Ironically, the smaller is the government, the greater is the cronies, the more corrupt the officials. The bureaucrat turns plutocrats, and plutocrats become kleptocrats. The faster the government is toward self-destruction. In the past, the military produced biological weapons to be used in the battlefield. Just as the Second World War was about to end, Italy led the nations involved in the war to make an agreement no more bioweapons, and 150 countries signed the agreement not to develop, produce, and distribute bioweapons. However, neither the United States nor Russia ever stopped with their research and development of the bioweapons, even though they signed the agreement. They used their private counterparts to do the work for them. After the incident of 9/11, President George Bush issued the Patriot Act, an act that explains the prohibition of the development, production, and distribution of bioweapons. The act even gives punishment to those who develop, produce, and distribute bioweapons. Disregard this act and the reality that non-military have been developing and producing bioweapons on behalf of government, and with privatization, more and more civilians are producing and distributing bioweapons at your expense because government has lost its control over public purse. Under the Obama's administration, he opened the Pandora box that allows researchers and scientists to engage in more risky research on bioweapons and the virus or the virulence of viruses, of artificial viruses created to meet the eugenics programs led by the United Nations. Since then, you have heard different diseases caused by viruses that have spread worldwide, such as Zika, Marburg, SARS, avian flu, bird flu, swine flu, monkeypox, Ebola, honeypot virus, and MERS. All these are, in reality, bioweapons that attack you as deadly diseases. They were made to attack you as a virus, and all are made from the same mother, the Spanish flu. These bioweapons were made to be more virulent and contagious under gain-of-function research. Didn't you see this during the COVID mandate? Political leaders endorsed social distancing 6 feet apart because of the virulence of the COVID-19. By law, it is the job of the police to stop this creation because it is illegal. It is against the law and it is a crime. However, since Obama has opened the Pandora box, scientists have not only developed bioweapons, but they also develop or experimenting on hybrid creations such as dogs and humans, a mix of dogs with human biological features and mix of other animals and humans. As I said, this kind of research is a crime. Gain of function research is also a crime because they always use you as the target. All the bioweapons creations are targeting human populations without your knowledge. In other words, your tax dollars are being used to fund the creations of weapons that will destroy you without your knowledge. You have rejected knowledge, and they use knowledge to destroy you at your expense. This corporate government is about money. It is greed. It is about power, and it is about control. They want to have total control over human beings. It is an organization decorated with crimes and criminal activities. Government has now become victims of its own invention. It becomes a den of lions. From good government, it becomes a bad government because it has many bad people in it. Since government reform, you, citizens, people who establish the government to be managed by you to serve your fellow citizens, have been removed and the cronies moved in to replace you. They do it through your elected officials, incrementally or radically. Take, for example, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. There is no such thing as a Department of Efficiency. It is a delusion. It is intended to create a scandal and radically take over government by removing more people from government. Imagine a corruption case in your department or agency. You don't know how to fix it. So you say, we have to ask the Department of Efficiency to come and fix it. What does the Department of Efficiency have to do with your organization? It doesn't know about your organization and things you do in your daily tasks and things involved. Take a look at the Internal Revenue Services or the Canada Revenue Agency. They deal with taxation and benefits. They are the nation's logistics. But they are very corrupt because people work for these agencies, a bunch of corrupt people from the start. They are just customers who want to maximize their profit by robbing you. Interestingly, the people they remove are those from the former cronies who enter the government without proper qualifications and have had their or had never gone through the security clearance. Former political staffs, for example, are exempted from security clearance. Therefore, people like to work in the government through the political party. There are people who, like their leaders, prioritize money because they love money rather than doing their duty to serve fellow citizens. They were placed in government to serve the cronies, not to serve you. After removing the people, Elon Musk put his own people because he wants the remaining of to be done by artificial intelligence. Through the artificial intelligence, he will summon the devil to rule the world. It is taking over cunningly and by force. People know it after the fact, after it was done. Efficiency should be done or ingrained in every task, every administrative procedure, and every process. In the way of solving problems, in every decision made and in every policy and regulation issued. For a good decision, a good policy, and a good regulations, all things must be filtered. All must be analyzed that they can stand the storm. Notice that since government reform, most policies, regulations, and political decisions are ones that cannot stand the storm. There are no more management decisions, but all political decisions, because politicians cannot tell the difference between political and management issues. Everything is politics. The Freedom Convoy, for example, is a management issue, but it was politicized because politicians politize everything to gain popularity. The greatest problem in government is that there are no more people who represent the people and serve the people. Leaders of this corporate government make decisions now without thinking and then rationalize their wrong decisions, justify their wrong decisions, that it is for your own good. But the decisions they made are based on the monetary reward or the gifting they constantly receiving from the cronies, the personal relationship they have with the cronies, and the pressure they receive from the cronies who want to have access to public resources now and take control over them at your expense. Do you remember during the COVID mandate season, Justin Trudeau even called the unvaccinated extremists and threatened all Canadians if they do not take the vaccine? They cannot travel or go to the restaurants, watch entertainment, and so forth. Let me play the video for you. He called the unvaccinated extremists. So Emmanuel Macron from France followed his example by calling the unvaccinated non-citizens. But the extremists and non-citizens were people who elected them. Very ungrateful, don't you think?
In 2021, Justin Trudeau's divisive rhetoric branded unvaccinated Canadians as extremists, fueling policies that stripped them of their freedoms and fractured their lives. Backed by fraudulent science, his words left scars, broken families, lost jobs, and a nation divided. Today, lawyer Danielle Freiheit is looking into the fallout and seeking accountability. So let's dig in. It's a topic that still burns for so many Canadians, and that's the hateful, divisive rhetoric spewed by then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially as the novel modified RNA COVID-19 vaccines were being rolled out. In 2021 and 2022, Trudeau didn't just push vaccine mandates. He vilified the unvaccinated, calling them extremists, misogynists, racists, and questioning whether we should even tolerate these people.
On sent que la sécurité est accrue autour de vous. Là. On sent que c'est plus dangereux peut-être en ce moment pour vous?
On est dans un moment difficile parce qu'on est en train de prendre des choix importants. On est en train de décider que, oui, on va s'en sortir de cette pandémie par la vaccination. Puis on en connaît tous des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu. On va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre. Mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination.
Qui sont extrémistes.
Qui ne croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens-là ou est-ce qu'on dit, ben voyons, la plupart des gens, presque 80% des Québécois ont fait ce qu'il fallait faire, se sont fait vacciner. On veut revenir aux choses qu'on aime faire. C'est pas ces gens-là qui vont nous bloquer. Maintenant, on est dans une quatrième vague qui est presque entièrement des gens non vaccinés qui remplissent nos hôpitaux à travers le pays. À un moment donné, il faut mettre son pied à terre pour dire « Excusez-moi, là, mais il n'y a pas de débat sur la science. »
These weren't offhand remarks. They were calculated, repeated, and followed by policies that segregated and discriminated against millions. The travel bans, for instance, the ArriveCan app, the loss of livelihoods, it all stemmed from this dangerous narrative that we were in a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And as biostatistician Regina Whittiel has meticulously detailed in her 2 books, the first, Fissman's Fraud, The Rise of Canadian Hate Science, and the sequel, called The Accomplices, 3 leading Canadian science institutions backed fraudulent research and data to boost COVID-19 vaccine uptake and demonize the unvaccinated. She shows how all of this was driven by political agendas and financial incentives, with their dismissive responses to evidence of misconduct thoroughly documented. So today we're left asking, how did this rhetoric impact Canadians? And how do we hold leaders accountable to ensure this kind of hate never divides us again? I'm joined by lawyer Daniel Freiheit, who's also known as Lion Advocacy on X, and he's been digging into the real world consequences of Trudeau's words. So let's hear it from him.
When I saw those quotes from Trudeau and in that video and various follow-up interviews he gave, where he really evoked a lot of emotion to bring on the hate, and a lot of people on X kind of really felt it, and a lot of members of the public were complaining about this. Like, how is this acceptable a way to speak about any member of society, regardless if they're an identifiable group or not? And we'll get into that later. So when I saw these comments and the aggression that Trudeau expressed over this group, calling anyone who was fiercely opposed to vaccination as misogynist, or suggesting that they're all misogynists, racist, and that that they can't be tolerated, or that they're taking up space, that troubled me a lot. Like, that really, I did not sit well with that. And so it's one thing to make those kind of threats, and then another to actually follow through with them. And then what we started seeing is that after he made those threats, he actually followed through with them. Sometimes in ways that he can't be directly liable for.
That's the question, isn't it? Trudeau's words weren't just hot air. They weaponized fear and turned neighbors against neighbors.
If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't think you can get on a plane or a train beside vaccinated people.
He painted the unvaccinated as a threat to society and then backed it up with policies that stripped them of basic freedoms, like the travel bans, barring Canadians from planes and trains, keeping families and loved ones apart.
That there will be consequences for those people in not being able to go to a gym or a restaurant, not being able to go to a movie theater.
Preventing people from attending funerals and isolating communities. The ArriveCan app turned border crossings and travel within this beautiful country into dystopian checkpoints, with some facing harassment from private security at their own homes. This wasn't about public health. It was about control and ultimately punishment.
Those are 2 good examples where Trudeau would have had direct hands-on involvement. With respect to the travel ban, he got some advice from independent medical people. None of them really clearly, there's no documentation that really clearly shows they wanted the unvaccinated banned from the trains and planes. Like, that's not, if you ask most doctors, they would say now, some on the record, some off, that probably didn't make much sense. And I even spoke to a couple, they're like, I don't really know where he's going with that. And so if you ask for details on that decision, guess what they say? Cabinet confidence. I'm like, whoa, so what can you say in cabinet confidence? Like, how much leeway does cabinet confidence give a member of parliament or a cabinet member? Can you actually basically encourage criminal, can their criminal speech be protected under cabinet confidence? That's where I got a bit concerned.
Not being able to get on a train or a plane.
Those travel mandates did not make any sense up until June 2022. They made 0 sense. And initially, planes and trains were considered high filtered places. Like, I was scared to get on a plane initially. Then everybody's telling me, no, they circulate the air. It's actually very clean. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. I always get sick in planes. Anyhow, point is, the travel mandates did not make sense, at least and especially not until June 2022. And no other country, as far as I was aware, put this on their citizens, that they couldn't travel internally. So they take up space on trains. How do we tell? We don't tolerate them. They're not going to be allowed to get on planes and trains, not going to be able to travel to see family members' funerals on plane. So he made these threats, and then he followed through with them, all in cabinet confidence. I mean, that irked me. And I don't know a lawyer in Canada who shouldn't be a bit irked, 1%, 5%. I'm up to 80% irked. And irked to the point where even the Information Commissioner of Canada was like, why are you declaring cabinet confidence?
scary is right. Trudeau's words didn't just hurt feelings, they ruined lives. Families were torn apart, friendships ended, and careers destroyed.
I want to stand up for the choice of those who are there for their neighbors, not those who are risking us all going into further lockdowns, of slowing our economic recovery.
All because the Prime Minister chose to demonize a group of Canadians for their personal medical choices. But some of those targeted had valid religious or medical exemptions, yet they were still swept up in this hate campaign. And Daniel's been looking into whether this rhetoric crosses into criminal hate speech, especially for protected groups, and what he's finding is a legal gray area that demands further inquiry. Most of us have heard that hate speech laws in Canada don't typically protect vaccination status because it's not considered a protected group. But is there really a hard line here?
Well, what I found is that you can hate on people in this country. You're allowed hating people for their political views, for their vaccination status. It's legal. This country, despite the restrictions we have on speech, you're allowed, and police won't enforce and Crown won't really prosecute for hate speech in this country unless it's against an identifiable group. There, everyone's eyes start raising eyebrows. I could list the identifiable groups. They're in the criminal code, section 318, I think. 319 references the 318 definition. And I'm not a criminal expert by any means. I've gotten some experience in helping out on different things, providing my just business kind of sense on some of these things. I'm like, well, it doesn't seem right to me, or just interpreting the language of certain. But the hate speech crosses the line when it's against an identifiable group. Now, everyone says vaccination status is not an identifiable group. There's no protections there. I'm like, yeah, there probably should be some statutory amendment there, because I think the decision to get vaccinated, I wouldn't recommend hating anybody for that. I don't think it's wise. I think there may be various reasons they don't want to get vaccinated. What I started seeing was that a lot of people who didn't get vaccinated or were fiercely, in Trudeau's words, what's the French word that he used? Fièrement? Whatever it is. Fiercely against vaccination, they actually had valid religious and medical exemptions, or medical exemptions. And we start to see that. The cases are coming out now. There was one in Alberta where, oops, this person actually did have a religious exemption.
Trudeau campaigned on this wedge issue, riling up crowds on the election trail, turning vaccine status into a moral litmus test. And for what? To score political points while Canadians lost jobs, homes, and their mental health spiraled out of control? Daniel's post on X asked people to share their stories, and the flood of responses, missed funerals, broken families, harassment, shows the human cost of this rhetoric. We need accountability, not just for justice, but to set a precedent. No leader should ever be able to foment hate like this again. So while Daniel is at the information gathering stage of looking into all of this, what's the end game, and what is he hearing so far from Canadians?
I'm finding that people, I know people are going to hate me for this, but look, the hate speech, that is what it is. If you're not an identifiable group.
If you want to get on a plane or a train in the coming months, you're going to have to be fully vaccinated. So families with their kids don't have to worry that someone is going to put them in danger in the seat next to them or across the aisle.
Maybe there's a Crown out there who has a different view, but if you're not an identifiable group, it's going to be harder. Now, there is intimidation, there is coercion, there is threats of, maybe there's other sections there that might be offside. But in terms of that, I think the real people with a claim here is the identifiable groups, people who had religious exemptions, people who had medical conditions, recognized or not. I don't care if that, because everyone's like, no one has a medical exemption to the vaccine. What are you talking about? Didn't you read the ministerial order? No one has an exemption to it. Try to find that guideline now. It's scrubbed. The government of Ontario scrubbed that exemption guideline. Don't blame them. I tried to get them to scrub it earlier, and I tried to get the CPSO to scrub it, or to at least to say, hey, wait a second, that's not binding.
So there's the mission: truth, accountability, and a promise to never let this happen again. Trudeau's rhetoric didn't just divide us, it dehumanized Canadians, and the scars are still fresh.
Businesses that choose to move forward with vaccination requirements aren't subject to unnecessary or unjustified lawsuits.
Daniel's work is a step toward healing and ensuring that no politician can hide behind cabinet confidence or pandemic fear to justify this kind of speech and these actions. If you've been impacted, reach out to Lion Advocacy on X, share your story, and perhaps help to build a case for justice. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you'd like to see my interview with Regina Wattil and follow other evidence-based reports on the novel vaccines, please do so at nomoreshots.ca. That's nomoreshots.ca.
Do you understand what he meant? It is money. Justin Trudeau's political campaign is all about who makes the most money to win the political power. He promised that he would get every Canadian vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine, 10 doses. He would be handsomely rewarded at the end. He owns 40% shares of a small company called Aquitas, and this company produces lipid nanoparticles, which is the main ingredient in the COVID-19 vaccine. This ingredient is one of the reasons they call it science. Imagine the monetary reward he would receive. First, he would receive money from the pharmaceutical companies, which is pretty much your tax dollars. In fact, politicians are paid for mandating the vaccinations. All entities and organizations are paid with your tax dollars for mandating the COVID vaccine. Second, as the owner of the Aquitas, Trudeau would receive millions or maybe billions of dollars in returns from the sale of his lipid nanoparticles. If you want a good government, no public leaders or public employees should have private business or involved in any business activities because they will use your tax dollars, as always the practice is, to enhance their business and use the public office for their business affairs. They never serve you. They can easily become corrupt, but they argue that it is for your own good. Then they use public policy to enhance their wealth at your expense. For example, some Canadian politicians join in the battle of COVID-19 by having his company participated in producing a pile of plastic signs saying 6 feet. The corporate government has removed the people and have their cronies taken over the government incrementally. All this is done at your own expense. I mean, they use your tax dollars to remove you from the institution established of the people, by the people, and for the people. Once you remove and rejected those with knowledge and knowledge specialization, reform the government to become a flat structure system with the leaders at the top who seek their own team at the top and those from the outside, and the frontline staff supported by the customer service or the client care agents who you never know who they are. Government becomes a hollow system. It is easy for the cronies or the enemies to attack you and even destroy you. They can easily attack you by using these political leaders. And since these leaders love money so much, the cronies use it as a means to control them. You cannot buy the hands that feed you, right? But the money comes from your tax dollars. These leaders can easily be controlled because they do not have the foundation and do not have people who are mentally and technically capable. They have a lot of staff who also love money, popularity, power, and wealth. Bird of a feather flock together. Corruption, bribery, fraud, identity fraud, all types of financial crimes, white-collar crimes, and even murder become the chronic diseases of this corporate government. Agents of influence or lobbies flooded the government and demanding greater access to public resources. Even elected officials are also agents of influence. Before and after they leave politics, they become lobbyists. Or they are lobbyists and become lobbyists after leaving politics. The cronies and those who have first access to elected officials are lobbyists. Globalists are also lobbyists. Donald Trump is also a lobbyist. His businesses went under and you bailed him out with your tax dollars. After lobbying, he decided to become the president, the man who can control the world by his word. Really, without special training and going through the developmental process, without experiencing the transformational process, or without experiencing the transformation, he is just an entrepreneur who thinks nothing but his own particular trade. In the past, having knowledge specialization was a ticket to a lucrative job in the government. Since government reform, being a lobbyist is a lucrative job. All you need is an idea and contact individuals in the government, including elected officials. All you do is sell your ideas to these people with a gifting that will be reimbursed with your tax dollars and collect your fee. When politicians turn lobbyists after leaving politics, they betray you and your country. Lobbying should be banned and put people with knowledge and knowledge specialization back into the institution established by the people and for the people. And as elected officials form a team from the outside and join the pop and soda clubs, they can easily be influenced by the political connection and inclined to pursue the mission and objectives of the clubs. They are surrounded by lobbyists, and with their illiteracy about government programs and their love for money, individual wealth, and power to control, they can easily betray you. Take a look at the Bilderberg Group and the World Economic Forum. One of the objectives of the Bilderberg Group is to cause you financial difficulty. Your political leaders have been using the tax office to give you financial difficulty at your expense since they become members of this group. But they are generous to the cronies when they come with ideas. They sacrifice you social and economic well-beings for money. The World Economic Forum and its objective is to totally control your mind and behavior and take over your financial assets and all your physical assets. This forum wants you to own nothing but be happy. They even want you to change to be like animals. Read public sector perspectives on biowarfare and creative capitalism. You will understand how the World Economic Forum, the globalists, or the world bodies want to change you to be what they want you to be. Over time, they loved money, and their greed grows as millions are infused and flows into the political parties and the pockets of the individual politicians. They continuously double dipping from the public treasury and directly from your pockets. Under corporate government, money becomes the tool for all policy decisions, administrative process, service, and all. You know what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Timothy 9, verse 10? For the love of money is the root of all evil, which, while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Being public leaders, you should become a good example to the society, and you have ample of opportunities. and you have ample of resources to do good for the society. But when you pursue the objectives of the pop and soda clubs where you are a member, your characters change. Without special training and without the support of the conspiracy theorists, they go in every direction, especially when there is money. They also suffer mentally and psychologically, but are too proud to admit it. Doing things practically in a scientific administrative system is mentally and psychologically degrading. Most of the leaders who love money end up in broken marriage, broken relationship, and even emotionally and intellectually bankrupt. It is karma, don't you think? Without job descriptions, politicians believe that their main task is to raise money and argue with until the other party cannot think anymore. This is what their understanding of politics, to argue until the other party cannot think anymore. They use public office and even create their own letterhead with the department name to raise money from individuals, organizations, and corporations. When it comes to financial and corporate crimes or white-collar crimes, you face customer service agents whose job is to argue with you until you cannot think anymore. They will lie and deny until the denial is impossible, just as the political leaders do on the political stage. The first problem of the corporate government is that there are no more people in it. All you have are the cronies and their people. All seek and put money as their main objectives and mission. Have you ever noticed? Once politicians started raising money, people are raising money everywhere in the country or even around the world. These elected officials have created a culture of begging thy neighbor. Wealthy individuals created phantom organizations, or even individuals created phantom companies to fraud you while begging you at the same time. Once their organizations or companies were financially established, after defrauding you, they started developing ideas and present them to the political leaders through bidding process. And after winning the deal, they use the address of the department or agencies in charge of the project. They do not have physical address, and therefore they use government address. This slowly becomes a movement of creating a deep state. They even use your identity to withdraw your tax dollars directly from your account and from public account, and even do money laundering using your identities or public policies. They are capable of doing so because they think that you are as stupid as the elected officials and that they have total control over you via your elected officials. Your tax office has been used to give you financial difficulty. Political leaders do not know how government makes its income. They even forgo all the steady income the government makes, designed by those with knowledge specialization while they were still working in the government, and adopt cheap ideas that can give seasonal income to government. All they know is taxes, and therefore they tax you to death. Tariff is just another tax, but people make a big deal about it because businesses do not want to pay taxes while they actually pass the tax to you, the consumers. Remember that Donald Trump sells Trump dollars to raise money for his campaign? He has to prepare to pay you back when you cast the dollar. This is just his politics to get the money without you robbing the bank when you cast his dollar. This is also an example of having a businessman to become public leader without going through a special training and experience the transformation. We have more wealthy beggars than poor beggars. These wealthy beggars dictate elected officials what to say, what to do, what to decide, and what policy to make in order to control you. They ensure that elected officials decide now and think later. As a result, it takes longer to fix a wrong decision. They mingle the management process with political arguments. They don't even know how to solve problems but want to be the commander. All want to be the chiefs, including the customer service agents or the client care agents. These people have more power over the political leaders because they know that the leaders are knowledge illiterate, knowledge dependent, and know nothing about the administration and operational management of the organization they lead. As leaders of private corporations, these elected officials join pop and soda class but are at your expense. For example, they join the Bohemian Group, the WEF, the Bilderberg Group, and just name it. They use your tax dollars to pay for the membership fee. They even pay for the operational management costs of the clubs they support. The WEF, for example, has its organization and operational management costs paid by Canadian taxpayers. Then, this forum wants the government to rip you of all your financial and physical assets and surrender them all to their committee of 300, where the leaders will share among themselves. It is a free wealth. Justin Trudeau has targeted that Canadians will surrender all their financial and physical assets in a year, or a quarter actually. The plan was within a quarter. Therefore, he used threat. These political leaders spend more time with the cronies and attending meetings at the clubs rather than performing leadership tasks, which they never know in the first place. The saying is, bad companies destroy good characters. Since they spend most of their time with their cronies, they tend to follow the ideas of the cronies, even though it comes at the expense of the people they promise to serve. Although the cronies' ideas are harmful, they continue to follow up and enforce them because they will receive a monetary reward after. They follow the ideas of the club, even though the ideas are about destroying you. Elected officials and political appointees not only know very little about government, but also do not have a foundation. As a result, money becomes their master and materialism becomes their religion. They go in every direction where there is money. In fighting on the political stage, their main focus was to win, and everything else is secondary. On the first day in the House of Commons as Prime Minister, Harper declared that he was to govern without government. The audience in the House did not analyze his statement. Harper was telling them that he was using the political stage, the public office, and the nation resources to establish his own kingdom. Then he declared that Quebec is a nation within a nation. This indicates that he does not understand sovereignty as long as he has a kingdom. Quebec can also be a nation. Not even a year in power, Stephen Harper joined the Bilderberg Group. To meet the objectives of Bilderberg, to create financial difficulty to citizens, Canadians, he created the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation to become the customer service of the Canada Revenue Agency, the national logistics. This creation by law is illegal and punishable, but his purpose was to take over the public resources of the federal government to establish his kingdom. From the day of its creation in April 2007, The Canada Revenue Agency Corporation has been robbing and defrauding citizens and non-citizens constantly using the name of Canada Revenue Agency. Their targets are always the small business operators, the elderly, the widows, and those who are weak and cannot defend themselves, including the innocent students who seek education to further their lives. The political argument is simply a performance on the silver stage, while the real job is done behind the closed door by the cronies and the political appointees. While many are excited watching politicians argue like a bunch of children squaring at each other in the schoolyard, and the referee would yell, "Order, order, order," they never realize that being argumentative not only makes them mentally corrupt, but also causes them to become dysfunctional. They are dysfunctional. And they are cruel, unjust, and morally damaging. Those who are preying on public resources like dealing with leaders who are dysfunctional. They can easily control these ignorant leaders. With money, these leaders go where you want them to go. These elected leaders do not even understand the Constitution and the history of establishing the nation and the currency of the nation. They believe in Bitcoins after its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, many believe to be a pseudonym, had his paper published on Bitcoins. I believe that this money was intended for games such as the virtual Monopoly game. In this game, you can mine your own money, keep it in the ledger, and can only spend it once with those who have the money. So everyone can mine his own money. When you cash it, you rob the bank. I mean, in real life, when you cash that Bitcoins, you rob the bank. In other words, it is just another way of robbing a bank without physically doing it. You legalize crimes. You legalize and normalize robbing the bank. The banks like to control your money and even your assets. Or their love for money is above the love of the elected officials for the money. Therefore, they like this idea of Bitcoins or digital money. They can combine all your money into the ledger and control you and your spending. At the same time, they have access to your money. When you are vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine, they can see your money and assets and other information about you, including your conviction. They can spend your money by using your identity while forcing you to own nothing. Not only do you will live under their mercy and constant surveillance, but you have also lost all your freedom. This is the main agenda of the WEF, a club whose members are mainly politicians, bankers, and corporations. Without understanding how a nation currency was established, many quickly got involved in mining Bitcoins. Everyone mines his own Bitcoins and trades them with others who have Bitcoins. Even Donald Trump, like I said, he created his own dollar called Trump dollars. He sold Trump dollars to raise money for his presidential campaign. Ignorance has bought into this scheme. By law and definition, both Bitcoins and Trump dollars are illegal money. When you buy Bitcoins or even Trump dollars and cash them, it is the same as robbing the banks in the open space. This is a crime. A money that can be used as a means of exchange for goods and services has to go through several tests, such as reliability, economic tests, durability, materiality, values, meritus, sustainability, expansibility, and the most important test is the legal test. Money has to be legalized before it can be used in the market and should socially acceptable and be adopted in the Constitution. Due to their knowledge illiteracy, they are leading us back to the era where money has not been adopted and constitutionalized, the time where you use silver and gold to exchange for goods and services. These are just other types of white-collar crimes committed by people of reputation and government officials, just as the crimes committed by the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation. Where are the police when you need them? The police officers have also been transformed into customer service. Therefore, they are called police service. They are no longer trained as law enforcement, but simply a service-oriented unit. Their knowledge of crimes has been suppressed and degraded. Similarly, you are being suppressed and degraded from knowledge. Therefore, as you can see in the field of education, knowledge has been reduced. Practicality and multitasking were adopted, glorified, and become the main hiring criteria after the introduction of the policy of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This policy has made people with knowledge specialization to be rejected from the white-collar employment. Those with practical knowledge are glorified and prioritized in white-collar employment. The conspiracy theories are then sent to the blue-collar field. Those who advocate practicality prioritize money. They are obedient and submissive to the cronies through the regime. They use money to control the regime and use the regime to control you. They want you to be obedient and submissive. They make sure that public servants stay remote from you and serve the government of the day, whose leaders spend most of their time outside the public office. When they come to public office, they are just lost or just simply lost. Most tasks are done by their staffs, including forging signatures. They only read 1 or 2 paragraph briefing notes prepared by their staff and sign on the dotted line. Decisions are pretty much determined by outside parties after negotiation and have reached consensus behind the closed doors. Their political arguments indicate how cruel, unjust, and morally damaging they are. Arguments are corrupt conversations. After arguing all day, they all corrupt, but they sleep on the same bed. No one is different from one to the others. First, in his critical remark on Twitter about newly elected opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, who pro-crypto platform, Justin Trudeau wrote, "We will also call out questionable, reckless economic ideas, telling people that they can opt out of inflation by investing in cryptocurrencies is not responsible leadership." In a separate TV appearance, Trudeau reiterated his remarks that responsible leaders should not advocate for individuals to invest their life savings in volatile cryptocurrencies. But politicians are so focused on money that without understanding of the money and its economic values and use in the state, they endorse bitcoins, illegal money. Especially after Elon Musk issued his Bitcoins advertisement, Trudeau and other political leaders began promoting or advertising Bitcoins. They admitted that they have invested and made money on cryptos. Then they suggest that you invest as well, even as small as possible, $350, and you will earn thousands in a month. They encourage you to buy Bitcoins and promise you a great return. It is ironic and sad that so many people strive to become public leaders but only to become richer, using their positions and authority. They use the system to make them richer. For example, they charge you for tax avoidance, but political leaders have built luxury mansions without having them registered to avoid taxes. Being politicians, although clueless about the law, they make laws and regulations that benefit them but are reversed to you. Even police units are afraid of charging them for any crime they committed because officers have been trained as customer service rather than law enforcement. As customer service, they are trained to manipulate, deceive, rob, fraud, lie, and deny until the denial is impossible. Under this corporate structure, public servants are made to be remote from you. The leaders ignore you, and all your communications, problems, or needs are sent to the customer service or client care. The purpose of sending you to the customer service or client care is to allow foreigners to serve you rather than public servants. It is a movement to remove the government and enhance the sovereignty of your nation. It is a policy movement toward the New World Order. Having access to your information, customer service agents use the opportunity and create schemes to defraud you, from whom they make a living. Political leaders know this. They know that in the process of government reform, those who enter government through political parties have been using your identities to withdraw money from the public treasury. In fact, identity theft and money laundering are in the news among those who work in this company or the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation. They never use the corporation, but only the Canada Revenue Agency. The law prohibits the establishment of an entity with the same name of an existing entity because of the fraudulent nature. But politicians created shell companies or customer service companies for the purpose of defrauding their fellow citizens. Customer service agents work without names and address. They never serve you but create schemes to victimize you even further. Although politicians know this, they lack leadership skills and without mental and technical capacity personnel to solve any problems you face. They are incapable and under the control of not only the cronies but also the customer service or the client care agents or those in charge of these agents. The dog may bark, but the carriage will go on. While you are being sent to the customer service, political leaders and their appointees spend much of their time with the cronies. As a result, they tend to agree with the agendas of the cronies. They even speak and defend the cronies more than they defend the country against other country. These elected officials are more loyal to the cronies than performing a fiduciary duty to their fellow citizens, who entrust them with the political power to manage the state and their economic and social welfare. During the COVID-19 pandemic and facing the Freedom Convoy, Justin Trudeau even had the police to stand guard the Parliament Hill with a sniper stationed on top of the roof of the hill to be ready to shoot the unarmed citizens. Worse, he invited the United Nations Army to go against the unarmed citizens, while the people want to meet and talk with him. Instead of facing the demonstrators, he ran away to his cottage in Tofino, BC. However, when the leaders spend their time arguing and keep sending you to customer service, it also means that they are dysfunctional, they are cowards, there's no leadership, they do not function as leaders. Without the support of people with knowledge specialty, they do not have the mental and technical capacity to do any task but speak eloquently. They are men and women of circumstances. Because of the money they receive, which actually comes from your tax dollars, they go in all directions. They cast a dark shadow everywhere they go. They are radical believers who will believe your BS because there is money for them at the end of the tunnel. They will manipulate and deceive you and lie and deny until the denial is impossible. Pay attention to the words expressed by politicians. They are laden with lies, manipulations, and deceitfulness that underlie emptiness. Ronald Reagan said that this corporate government is a system of nihilism. It is about accessing public money or your tax dollars for free. It is very easy to control those who are mentally and technically lacking and have prioritized money. When they make a wrong decision, they find a scapegoat or spend hours, days, months, and even years to deny until the denial is impossible. They use business strategies to hide all the chronic diseases created by the bad people in the government. This is why George Orwell warned political language is very cheap. It can even make murder honorable. They use their eloquent speech to kill you, and you are willing to agree with them because you reject knowledge. You sponsored and have elected officials who reject knowledge and spread their attitude of anti-knowledge or anti-conspiracy theories. They want to control the government so that they can have easy access to your tax dollars. They want to become rich at your expense. They reject people with knowledge, expertise in the government, and even those who try to work in the public sphere. Why? They want to control the public purse through the elected officials, and these officials will control you. Like in the era of Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge leader in Vietnam, during his era, people with knowledge specialty were sent to work in the rice field. They were rejected for working to serve the public. Chairman Mao once admitted that those with knowledge specialty are keener to work for the public, more willing to serve the people, and are great problem solvers because they are capable to put themselves in the shoes of the victims. They can seek through the root of the problem and heal the patients. They are also endowed with leadership capacity. They are the source of knowledge, but have been rejected in the marketplace, endorsed by politicians, who then introduce and endorse the creation of the policy and a cabinet positions called diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ever since, as you may or may not notice, the quality and standard of education has declined, right from the higher education down to the kindergarten. At the higher level, they do not want you to have that knowledge specialization. Those who sponsor the elected officials and the appointed officials are afraid of those with knowledge specializations because these intellectuals can quickly finger point a problem with only a single input. Therefore, with the COVID pandemic, they cast their attitude by calling these people conspiracy theorists. They don't want you to believe these people. Since 2015, they have started manipulating you in the open space to uphold junk science by funding fact-checkers and snopes. These people emerge as the modern science, you believe them more than those they call conspiracy theorists. They use an education system to ensure that your knowledge level is low or lower than theirs so that they can control you. Most of these leaders enter the government with hidden motives. Therefore, they dislike those with knowledge specialization. To meet their agenda, they have to control you. The globalists want to control you by first take control of the political leaders, take control over the government and the mainstream media, which are part of the government. You know, mainstream media are actually public office. In every war, if in order to declare you're winning, you take over the media first. That's indicate that you're winning. The education and those with knowledge specialization were rejected because the people of the regime have hidden motives working in the government. They do not want to serve you as public leaders should, but they want to pursue their own interests and the interests of those who give them financial contributions. Prophet, Prophet Hosea warned, since you reject knowledge, the people will be destroyed. You will be destroyed due to your ignorance, and you have denied knowledge. For years, you are facing with the schemes of destroying you with your tax dollars. Many different schemes, from food to drinks to drugs to food produce to chemtrail to bioterrorism, and COVID-19 was meant to be the climax of your destruction. Speaking about Justin Trudeau's remark about cryptocurrencies, a question you should ask: what do cryptocurrency have to do with leadership? Nothing. It is just a manipulation to make you think of investing in cryptocurrency. Since the early 1900s, the eugenics have always wanted to keep the population low. They want to keep the population as low as possible, which is against God's purpose of having humans to inherit the earth and multiply. In his interview with Michael Solomon of L'Affichage de l'Avenir in 1981, Jack Attali, a eugenist and a Freemason, said, "The future will be about finding a way to reduce the population. We start with the old because as soon as they exceed 60 and to 65 years, people live longer than they produce, and that costs society dearly. Then the weak, then the useless that do not help society because there will always be more of them, and above all, ultimately, the stupid. Euthanasia targeting these groups. Euthanasia will have to be an essential tool in our future societies, in all cases. Of course, we will not be able to execute people or build camps. We eliminate them by making them believe that it is for their own good. Overpopulation and mostly useless is something that is too costly economically. Socially, too, it is much better when the human machine comes to an abrupt standstill than when it gradually deteriorates. Neither will we be able to test millions upon millions of people for their intelligence. You bet that. We will find or cause something, a pandemic targeting certain people, a real economic crisis or not, a virus affecting the old or fat, it doesn't matter. The weak will succumb to it, the fearful and stupid will believe in it and seek treatment. We will have made sure that treatment is in place, treatment that will be the solution. The selection of idiots then takes care of itself. You go to the slaughterhouse by yourself. Didn't you see this during the COVID-19 pandemic? This is the protocol during the COVID pandemic. In 1994, the United Nations held a business meeting on the eugenics program, attended by businesses, bankers, and government officials. After this meeting, all attendees agreed on the eugenics agenda, which is to depopulate the earth. To keep the population down, they always use the vaccine, which was first started with the Spanish flu in 1918. The Spanish flu was actually an engineered bioweapon patented and owned by the Rockefeller. It spread around the world, carried by the United States Army across the Atlantic in 3 different waves. More people died after the vaccination administration than after the spread of the virus, intentionally. Military men and women have been the guinea pigs of bioweapons for decades. Seventh-day Adventist youths in the United States, for example, if they reject to be drafted for military service, they will sign an agreement to participate in bioweapon experiments. These experiment subjects receive injection after the military scientists have developed the antidote. The main agenda of eugenics is to maintain the growth of population. The eugenics declare that the earth is theirs and the population should be kept at maximum of 500,000. The eugenics wants to inherit the earth and not you. Therefore, they want to constantly depopulate you and also want to take your properties. You and your properties must become theirs. For ages, the eugenics have wanted to depopulate the earth using the vaccine and different other schemes. Using a vaccine is a faster process, the faster way of depopulating the earth in a short period globally. Canada and the United States have started their plan for the eugenics program in the 1980s, years before the United Nations hosted the business meeting on the eugenics program. The attendees agreed to this agenda. Who does not want a free money? It is public-private partnership. When a program was created under public agenda, it is meant to benefit you. But under corporate government, it is about private agenda, and the target victims are always you. For the depopulating agenda that takes longer and without your suspicion, the food and beverage industries were then subsidized by government to process foods and drinks that will eventually depopulate the earth. Planned Parenthood even went mainstream to encourage abortion, but then they sell the parts or organs to researchers and scientists. Then there is the chemtrail as open-air experiment, industrialization and commercialization of bioweapons, and bioterrorism in the open space without your knowledge. Crowded places such as subway. The New York subway has been commonly used as the field for bioterrorism activities. Airports are another crowded place used for bioterrorism activities, as in the case of SARS, released in 2003, and even COVID-19. Bioterrorism is very simple. For example, you place a dead animal in your water system or bacteria that cause food poisoning in food products. In Canada, every year, government tells people not to swim on certain beaches because of E. coli, or people must boil water first before drinking it because of E. coli. Food products were recalled due to salmonella or other bacteria. It is an ongoing event. There is also the release of viruses or bioweapons such as avian flu, Zika, Ebola, Shiga, MERS, cholera, Kawasaki, polio, Hanipa, hepatitis C, and anthrax. Chemical agents sprayed through the chemtrails are also part of bioterrorism or biocrime. It is a crime against humanity. Where are the police? Where are the military? When politicians discuss about ending the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and had decided that It would end on July 4th, the day of the U.S. or United States Independence Day. But Bill Gates argued that the pandemic should last at least 2 years. As an NGO and its practices prolong or preventing solving of problems, but to make people just to cope with the problem is a strategy for funding effectiveness. In other words, if the pandemic is prolonged, those involved will receive more of your tax dollars. It is about accumulating profits, but politicians argue that it should be end now. So Bill Gates decided that it will be furthered with bioterrorism. As a result, 5 parks in Ontario and later all across Ontario, in Canada, were sprayed with tick-borne diseases, while South Keys, Florida, Monroe County, Texas, California, Northern California were sprayed with engineered mosquitoes that carry Zika and also with tick-borne diseases. Read more about this in Public Sector Perspectives on Biowarfare and Creative Capitalism. Then in 2015, Bill Gates appeared on TED Talk TV and delivered his prediction about COVID-19. The World Health Organization named COVID-19 after the incident, but Bill Gates gave the name coronavirus COVID-19 in 2015 during his presentation. At the end of his presentation, he wanted to have a $3 trillion investment. This is proposed to government under public-private partnership. This means that your government pays between 80% and 85%, while the industry pays the remaining. Why did he ask for $3 trillion? It is to bribe governments around the world through the IMF and the World Bank to do total or strict lockdown, social distancing, and the wearing of a mask. Although it is a bribery, it was accepted under the term of soft loan. Where's the logic of this? You have to pay back the bond lender organizations money that is yours. It's money from your own pocket, but you have to pay back because it is a soft loan. Where's the logic? When you think about this reality, I wonder why these governments don't think first. For once, they do not have trained policy analysts or those with specialization in public policy. They do have business analysts, though. As corporate government, they do business analysis to conquer the world. You know that in the public sector, the policy analysis is a civilian defense system. Policy analysts are extinct in the government. They are the backbone of the government but have been rejected, and with government has become a hollow system. It is easy to attack a country or a government without physical effort. So the next one, you will hear Bill Gates' presentation on TED Talk TV about coronavirus or COVID-19 in 2015.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic. The failure to prepare could allow the next epidemic to be dramatically more devastating than Ebola. The best lessons, I think, on how to get prepared are, again, what we do for war. We need a medical reserve corps. Lots of people who've got the training and background who are ready to go with the expertise. And then we need to pair those medical people with the military, taking advantage of the military's ability to move fast, do logistics, and secure areas. We need to do simulations, germ games, not war games, so that we see where the holes are. Finally, we need lots of advanced R&D in areas of vaccines and diagnostics. There are some big breakthroughs, like the adeno-associated virus, that could work very, very quickly. Now, I don't have an exact budget for what this would cost, but I'm quite sure it's very modest compared to the potential harm. The World Bank estimates that if we have a worldwide flu epidemic, global wealth will go down by over $3 trillion, and we'd have millions and millions of deaths. If we start now, we can be ready for the next epidemic. Thank you. So this is a serious problem. We should be concerned.
Then Bill Gates admitted that for the first dose of COVID-19 vaccination or the first rollout, it will no doubt kill 700,000 people or 1 billion people globally. Then to support Bill Gates with his vaccination agenda, actually to support Jack Attali, Henry Kissinger, former Minister of State during Nixon administration, said in his presentation also about the eugenics program at the World Health Organization Council on February 25, 2009. Once the herd accepts mandatory forcible vaccination, it's game over. They will accept anything forcible, blood or organ donations for the greater good. We can genetically modify children and sterilize them for the greater good. Control sheep minds and you control the herd. Vaccine makers tend to make billions, and many of you in this room today are investors. It's a big win-win. We thin out the herd, and the herd pays us for providing extermination services. Is this not a reality? You pay for your own extermination, and Big Pharma makes billions, while politicians receive up to millions as fee for service. The government was not involved in the COVID pandemic. Those involved are the private sector led by Rockefeller. As you can see, this book, Public Sector Perspectives on Biowarfare and Creative Capitalism, describes the dark side of the corporate government, which is also the result of you rejecting knowledge, and the people will be destroyed. It gives you more detailed information on how the stage of destroying you at your own expense was planned decades ago. Money destroys the family relationship. It destroys the government. It destroys leaders and their families, and it destroys you. It is time to put the people back into the government. It is time to put knowledge and knowledge specialization into government and prioritize service to fellow citizens rather than money.